evening and welcome again. August 8th, 1974, Richard Nixon announced he was going to resign the presidency of the United States. Why? A third-rate burglary called Watergate had become something much, much more. Tonight, we relive history with the two reporters of the Washington Post who broke that story, who worked that story, who educated America about Richard Nixon and Watergate. With us, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. Welcome both.
Good to be here.
Thank you. 25 years ago, this very weekend, Richard Nixon resigned. Set the stage. Richard Nixon addresses the nation on the evening of Thursday, August 8th, 1974. And Bob Woodward, you hear him say, tomorrow at noon, I will resign the presidency.
I think Carl and I were sitting on the floor of the managing editor's office of the Washington Post. I recall eating a bologna sandwich. The Post always brought in gourmet fare for events like this, and feeling numb.
Carl, let me show you in the audience that tape of the president's words and try to get your precise reaction. Let's roll it.
Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office.
I remember the absolute awe that I was feeling about what had happened, that what had happened to the country, that what had happened to this man, and obviously our role and the newspaper's role in it. There was nothing you could feel but awe and also relief that the system really had worked. I mean, I think if there is any overall lesson to be learned from Watergate is that the system functioned. The press did what it was supposed to do. The judiciary did what it was supposed to do. The Congress did what it was supposed to do.
Bob Woodward, what was the mood 25 years ago this weekend for our younger viewers who didn't experience it? How are people thinking about the White House, the president?
Well, the idea of a president resigning was inconceivable. And in fact, I know I personally felt he would never resign. Nixon was known as somebody who never quit. But what happened, it's exactly the process Carl said. Everyone served, in a sense, played their role. And in a way, that week that Nixon resigned, the best role probably was played by the Republican Party, Nixon's own party, symbolized by Barry Goldwater, who went down to see Nixon and said, it's over. We've counted the votes. There are too many crimes, too many lies, essentially, and there is an idea that the Democrats or the press turned Nixon out of office. Really, it's the Republicans who turned him out of office.
In your book, All the President's Men, Carl Bernstein, you capture an amazing scene. Barry Goldwater calling Ben Bradley, the editor of the Post, and saying, quote, he's trapped, but don't you bastards say it. Because he may change his mind.
Goldwater had a real sense of something had to be done to end the agony that the country was going through, and he didn't want to see anything disturb Nixon's going gently into the night. Nixon was understandably voluble. One of the things that you have to understand about this is also Nixon, the human being. No president in the history of the country had to even feel the kind of pressure that he was feeling. No president had been forced to abdicate in the history of our country.
Someone who has spent his life fighting to obtain the presidency, now giving it up.
Imagine what that must do. And I must say, Nixon performed admirably in the end.
That's exactly right. I mean, Nixon could have said, drag me out, convict me, throw me out of office. And as he said in that speech that night, he effectively impeached himself and was going voluntarily. One of the things that you see in Nixon in his political career and in the secret White House tape recordings is a kind of realism. I had somebody go transcribe some of the tapes involving Carl and myself in the Washington Post coverage. And when Watergate was really getting heavy for Nixon, Nixon said to Ziegler, don't attack the press. We tried that earlier in '72, and they won.
August 27th, 1973, Nixon. Woodward will be writing tomorrow. They, Woodward, Bernstein, the Post, better watch out. Ziegler, yes, sir. Nixon, tell him he better watch his goddamn ass. Ziegler, we gotta kick this crap. Nixon, I mean it. They're going to attack the president's men, but they must not attack the president.
Well, there you really have the essence of things, and that is that Nixon engineered the cover-up, that Nixon was a criminal president, and that his abuse of power was pervasive. On those same group of tapes, we also hear Nixon ordering fire bombings, not just break-ins, to obtain classified papers that he thought might be in a think tank, the Brookings Institution. There had never been a president of the United States that saw himself in this light, that the law meant nothing in terms of his own conduct as President of the United States and the Constitution.
There was even talk, as I remember as a young man watching this all unfold, that the military was surrounding the White House, that perhaps the president was going to unleash a military coup and try to hold on to power. It never materialized.
That was always nonsense.
Yeah, that was rumor and hope on some people's part, and now that we know the very detailed record of what occurred, that was not even planned or contemplated. But the fragment of tape you read, this is in April of '73. Now this is 15 months before Nixon resigns. He is telling Ziegler, his spokesman, look, you go out there and you tell the Washington Post they better watch it, and essentially they can attack the president's men, but not the president. And in a way, it is in this period that Washington politics, Washington journalism is changing. Forever. And Nixon somehow thinks that he can get his press secretary to kind of call off the dogs.
Because he's the president. And the president had a chubby relationship and clubby relationship with reporters. President Kennedy used to edit copy in the Oval Office, Carl Bernstein.
Well, we had a great advantage. We were metropolitan reporters for the Washington Post. We were not part of that national press corps that actually had been taken in by the new Nixon and was writing about the new, gentler, kinder Nixon. We covered this story the way we covered local police stories. We took it a piece at a time. One of the things, if you look at the movie of All the President's Men, what I like most about that movie is it's not really about Bob and I and our personalities. It's really about the grunge work that we did. It's about what real reporting is. Basic, hard work, slogging, knocking on doors, nothing glamorous about it.
Let's get to all that. It all started June 17th, 1972 with the break-in. Let's get out by watching a clip from All the President's Men.
Can we use the names? No.
God damn it, when is somebody gonna go on the record in this story?
You guys are about to write a story that says the former Attorney General, the highest ranking law enforcement officer in this country, is a crook. Just be sure you're right.
Who is Charles Colson?
The most powerful man in the United States is President Nixon. You've heard of him. Charles Colson is special counsel of the president. There's a cartoon on his wall. The caption reads, "You got him by the balls. Their hearts and minds will follow."
Robert Redford playing the role of Bob Woodward. Bob Woodward had been at the Washington Post for 9 months, working on the Metropolitan desk, didn't know who Charles Colson was. And yet, on June 17th, 1972, what happened? Where were you? Who called you?
Well, it was a Saturday morning, and I was assigned the night police beat at the Post, and I was very anxious because I tried out at the Post couple of years earlier, and they had not hired me, and I was disappointed. I had failed. And so I was scrambling, and on Saturday morning they had this burglary. Didn't seem very interesting, and they said, who is foolish enough to come in and work?
On a Saturday morning.
On a Saturday morning, and I was at the top of the list. So the city